joining me by phone from Washington, D.C., Congressman Greg Walden. I wasn't sure if you were going to be able to make it or not. How are you?
You know, I'm doing fine. We just left the president in the Oval Office where he signed this rescue package into law, the biggest investment in small businesses and American citizens in the history of the country as we try and get to the other side of this coronavirus outbreak.
Well, you know, there are a lot of questions that I've had callers on the show asking about this. But before I get there, what is the situation out in Oregon where you're the congressman?
You know, we have quite a few cases. We're certainly not as badly hit as New York City or New Orleans or Seattle or all. We've gotten after it. And so we're monitoring it. Obviously, like other places, we need more protective equipment. We need to beef up our services out there. But we're staying on top of it for now, thankfully. But we've got people that have it. We've got people that are struggling with it. We've lost a couple of people along the way. And so we all have to take this very, very seriously.
What is your overview of the stimulus package, and what should people be taking away? Particularly, there are a lot of people listening right now who they're in smaller businesses or they're self-employed. Yeah. A lot of people I know with 1099 income. Yeah.
So just for your audience, my wife and I were small business owners for 21 years. We were actually in the radio broadcast business, owned and operated 5 small market radio stations in Oregon. So I understand cash flow and small business and working with small business. And, you know, with the president's leadership and Secretary Mnuchin and Kevin McCarthy and the leader of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, they really crafted this to go right to the sweet spot for small business. So you can go to your lender once this is out in the marketplace, which should be about a week, maybe a week and a half. You can go to your lender. You can say, look, I got to meet payroll. I got to pay my rent. I got to pay my utilities. I got a mortgage payment. And you can borrow from that lender that money. And as long as you keep your employees on your payroll through the end of June, that loan turns into a grant up to 2.5 times the cost of your payroll. So you can pay your people. You can keep your team together while the government has everybody sheltering and shut down. You can keep your team together. You can keep their health insurance going. You can pay them. And at the end of June, you can get up to 2.5 times your overall payroll costs forgiven. It becomes a grant. This is hugely important. And for those who have lost their jobs already, they can be hired back, and your employer can take advantage of this. And this is small businesses up to 500 employees. And you know, Oregon just has a lot of those. That's what we run on, our small businesses. And then, of course, if you're unemployed and you don't have a job to go back to, we've stepped in and provide a $600 a week increase in unemployment benefits. Now, you can't go quit your job and go on unemployment, right? That's not allowed today. It wouldn't be allowed under here. You can't cheat and game this system. But for those who have already lost their jobs and are trying to figure out, how am I going to pay for the groceries or the rent or, you know, for the kids? This bill really provides a life ring and a safety net. We got to get across this deep canyon caused by the coronavirus attack and get to the other side. So think of this bill as the bridge that gets you over that canyon, provides a safety net under that bridge for people who have already lost their jobs. But this provides all kinds of assistance. And for our healthcare workers, not only do we invest in more protective equipment and the medicines that they will need, but we're doing a huge investment to try and find a vaccine and a cure, including allowing medical innovators to access the world's fastest computers through our national labs. And they're already pushing this virus strain against known medicines to see if maybe there's something on the shelf that would work. So all of that's in this package and a lot more.
Now, I know you're the ranking member of Energy and Commerce in the House, and that oversees HHS and underlying healthcare functions. One of the partisan attacks being made right now is that the president initially, while distracted by impeachment, didn't do enough. Of course, he was attacked when he shut down travel with China. But it seems like if you listen to Dr. Fauci or Dr. Birx, one of the underlying issues was the bureaucracy within the FDA or the CDC, and that's where a lot of the initial problems with testing came. And just wanted to get your take on that.
You know, I would actually have a little different view on it because I've been in involved in preparing for pandemics for a very long time. Under my chairmanship 2 years ago, Susan Brooks, our colleague from Indiana, wrote the law, the Pandemic All Hazard Preparedness Act, that the president signed into law now this year because we couldn't get it to the Senate 2 years ago. And so I've been in these briefings. Look, everybody hoped that this virus would be contained in China where it broke out. That's what you always hope, is that wherever it starts, you get it shut down. And by the way, that's been the history of Ebola, SARS, and MERS. They were able to get on it, isolate, shut it down, stop it from expanding. Unfortunately, this one got away. And that was always the issue, was if it gets away, then how do we contain it? And the president was way out front, shutting off flights from China. And, of course, the left lost their minds, right?
Right.
And we're attacking the president and all that. And at the same time, in the early part of the year, as this was developing in China, remember, they didn't share information with us for at least the first 4 weeks, maybe longer. And so eventually we got our hands around what was going on. But even then, some of the leading voices in this space in the medical community thought we would be able to stop it, contain it, control it, and that we would manage through it. Well, then things changed. It got here. It spread rapidly. It lives a long time on different places. You know, if you think about subway cars or your, kitchen counter, this virus hangs around a long time and is very contagious.
Right.
So as we understood the virus better, we changed, and the whole government changed. But now we're in a different phase, and it gets away. Now you have to go to another level of healthcare, and the whole issue here is we don't have an antiviral and we don't have a vaccine, so you have to fall back on the very basic medicine, and that is shelter in place, wash your hands, social distance. And if we do all those things, we can get the rate of contagion down from one person exposing a lot of people to less than one person. And that's where we have to get, so we can knock this thing in the head while we rapidly develop an antiviral to treat people and eventually the vaccine.
Congressman, and for those of you just tuning in, I'm talking to Congressman Greg Walden. Congressman, just one last question for you here. The headlines today, the United States has surpassed China in the number of infected cases. What's your view on the data coming out of China?
Yeah, so I read just recently that China does not count asymptomatic positive tests. Now, I want to triple check that, but that's what I read. And I believe it to be true. I've had it confirmed. And so, in other words, where we report anybody that tests positive, they only were reporting those who had symptoms and tested positive. Now, I would tell you, because of the rapid spread of this disease and our lack of ability to test as much as we wanted once a test was developed, we probably have more people that have had it and have it today than we have tested. So in the early stages of one of these outbreaks, the data are always a little questionable. What is startling to me out of China is that all of a sudden they had no cases. Right. And I find that hard to swallow. And so the key is, and the president said it today, he had a very good conversation with President Xi, very, very good conversation with President Xi, and that they're sharing data with us. The Chinese, to their credit, did put the whole genome up for the world to see, to begin working on a vaccine or a treatment. I give them great credit for that. That allowed our scientists to go to work right away and know how this thing was built and what they needed to go attack, and they're doing that. I think the most important thing, though, is let's nip this thing now as quickly and dramatically as we can so we can get to the other side. And if it acts like normal coronaviruses, we should see it taper off a lot over the summer. But that probably means it will act like a flu and come back in the fall. I've got part of my team on the Energy and Commerce Committee already focused on lessons learned from the existing situation, and what do we need to do to be focused on the fall if this returns. And hopefully by then we'll have an antiviral, a medicine that will treat it.
Well, Congressman, listen, thank you so much for stopping by. This has been really, really informative, and thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I just want to again say the president and his team are doing a great job. He's really leaned forward on this, and we're making progress.
Great. Good to hear. Congressman Greg Walden.